Did anybody watch this fight, Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather? I don't know if anybody here did. I just saw the highlights. I did not pay for it. But is this the future of boxing here? Because it might be. Get used to it. We'll discuss that a little bit because I've kind of changed my opinion on it. I don't like it, but I understand it. And if people want to watch, I always say when somebody criticizes something, well, then don't watch. There are people who are going to watch this. Okay. But I was not going to pay for it. I was not that interested in watching Floyd Mayweather make $100 million again. Logan Paul, Jake Paul, Paul Bunyan, it didn't matter. Chris Paul, they could have put them all in the ring. Didn't really matter to me. But I understand it because there's money to be made here. There's a market. That's it. And the market is those of you, probably 4 million people who paid for this fight. Yeah, Paulie.
What I really want to know about this fight is how many 16-year-olds put this on their mom's debit card and going to answer for it in like 4 days. $69.95 on my debit card. Christian.
I don't know who Logan Paul and Jake Paul are. I just know that they're really popular on YouTube. I don't know what they do on YouTube, but they are brothers, but I don't know what their specialty. Are they famous for being famous? They have a lot of fans. I guess I got to ask my kids if they know who Logan and Jake Paul does anybody know what they do? What's their job? What's their videos?
Yeah, it's always interesting when someone's like, what do you do for a YouTuber?
Yeah.
Oh.
Influencer. Yes, McLevin.
Do you remember Logan Paul became really famous when he filmed a dead man and it was very controversial on his vlog?
Oh.
It was that took him from the biggest vlogger to like the first YouTube superstar.
Oh. Well,
not in a good way.
Wow, that's
it's not admirable.
Yeah. Yeah, Paulie.
But, even if you want to rip on Floyd Mayweather for doing this and taking the money, somebody called him. Floyd was sitting at home and he got a phone call 6 weeks ago and said, hey, we'll give you $40 million for, 25 minutes of work.
Yeah. And he hyped the fight, and I think there was some legitimacy to have Floyd in there. There was no winners, no losers, apparently. They didn't say somebody won or somebody lost. I would say that Logan Paul, I'd say they both won. They got what they needed. They got exposure. They got paid. Here's Floyd Mayweather on what happened after the fight.
If you don't like me, don't write about me. If you guys don't want to see me do no exhibitions, don't come. Don't watch. I come on record and tell y'all, when it comes to legalized bank robbing, I'm the best.
That's great. That is great. I saw where Floyd Mayweather spent $1 million on cars for his boys. Now, I think he bought another Rolls Royce, maybe a couple of them. But I went down the list. Somebody, I think, got a minivan. And then, somebody got a Dodge Challenger. There, you went down the list there. Floyd got a Rolls Royce. I think somebody else got a Rolls Royce. I think Floyd has 30 Rolls Royces. It's crazy. I don't know where he keeps everything. He's probably got an airplane hangar. But Floyd has made money. And he bought his guys. I think there were 9 cars that he bought for $1 million. What is the poll question today, McLevin?
Okay, we have so many different options. The pre-show debate was about boxing. Does that celebrity fighting stuff water down the real sport of boxing?
Well, what is the real sport of boxing? Tyson Fury?
Well, the heavyweights keep on messing up all the matchups. We
Canelo
can't see
Alvarez? Triple
Joshua.
G?
Is Triple G still relevant?
What is he around? How old is he?
He's 37.
Yeah. So I don't know what the sport of boxing is right now. Because if you, who you focus on? Who's must-see TV? Who's must-see pay-per-view right now? It doesn't feel like it's any of these boxers that we're mentioning here. Yes, Eden?
It does feel kind of weak, though, as I don't even know, as a casual fan of boxing, right? To watch one of the all-time greats not be able to knock out the YouTuber feels kind of lame. It kind of feels like, so this is what boxing is? This awesome, like, Hall of Famer, one legendary fighter can't knock out the YouTube guy?
I think he chose to not knock him out. Now, I'm going to give Logan Paul credit. Whether Floyd carried him, he's still in the ring with one of the greatest fighters of all time. Granted, he's in his, mid-40s. But I thought, this guy can't fight, who's in there, but gave us the impression that he could. I mean, he's not a boxer at all. He's slow. He's not polished at all. I mean, he caught Floyd one time, and I give him credit for that. But, I mean, you got 20 years younger. You got, 30 pounds on Floyd? Like, if you get in there, all right, just start swinging. And he would swing like my younger brother would whenever we'd get in a fight. He would just lower his head and just start using both of his hands and just start slapping. And I just thought Floyd was being very nice. Sort of what Floyd did to Conor McGregor. All right, and let me stretch this out a little bit. It'd be bad for business if Floyd just came out and by the way, Floyd doesn't knock anybody out. He's just a brilliant defensive strategist. Yeah, Paul, Seton.
Yeah, you just don't think, though, when he's facing the YouTube guy.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be the time he'd show off a little bit instead of going back into his defensive position.
Yeah.
I'm going to outlast him. Really? Okay.
I still think Floyd could have beaten Logan and Jake Paul at the same time.
That's the next match, I think.
Yeah, Paul.
This thing is so choreographed and produced. There's no next fight for these guys if they don't make the first fight interesting. Floyd Mayweather is in on the fix. This is you just keep the guy upright. You bounce around a little bit. And then now when whichever Paul brother fought yesterday wants to fight another person, there's going to be another $50 million payday, because if it's a 30-second knockdown, no one's buying the next one. This is the long game. This is a long con.
How about Logan Paul versus Jake Paul? Then I'm interested. But I think Jake Paul called out Triple G and said that nobody buys your fights, I'll own you. I don't know what that means, but yeah, this is here to stay. I mean, Chad Ochocinco, did you see him boxing? He got popped, though. I think he won the first 3 rounds. Then he got popped on the chin and went down.
Did he get a standing Ocho count?
Oh, okay.
Oh, that was excellent. That was excellent.
It's early. It's early. Plus Paulie +1.
Thank you.
Yes,
Knockdown.
McClellan.
So I just looked up the most lucrative boxing fight in the last 5 years. It was Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. This is all we're going to have is gimmicks. I mean, that's the only fight that's the only time they've beaten UFC in a year was Tyson's Roy Jones Jr.
But if you have a younger audience that doesn't remember what a big spectacle boxing was and big fights and you had great fighters, then it's the novelty of this. Hey, $50, I get an evening of this. I get to see, Logan Paul, Jake Paul, Floyd Mayweather. Is it gimmicky? Yeah. So is wrestling. People watch it. Yeah, Paul.
I don't really think this affects boxing at all. I would bet that the people who bought the Paul Mayweather fight are 95% not boxing fans, not regular boxing fans.
Yeah.
And boxing is a good sport. It's not what it was in the 70s, 80s, and never will be. It's not MMA or UFC because that's kind of taken over. But boxing does well. I can name 20 boxers. And it's a good sport that's on Showtime and ESPN, but it's never going to be what we remember. Like nothing's like it was in the 70s or 80s.
Boxing kind of looked up and said, wait, what happened to the sport because of USC? And now it's still trying to figure out. It's like you got a standing 8 count and you're kind of wobbling a little bit here. And you're trying to get to a neutral corner just to kind of figure out, all right, what direction are we headed in? Is this the direction? Because people are making money here. And I was very fortunate to cover boxing back in the 80s, and I got to see some of the great fighters. And I got to go to these events, and they were true events, whether it was Mike Tyson fighting or Evander Holyfield fighting, Alexis Arguello, Aaron Pryor, Tommy Hearns, Vito Antuofermo, Marvelous Marvin Hagler. I got to Sugar Ray Leonard, got to see those fights. So when it comes to something like this, I feel bad for the sport because it used to be important. And now it's gimmicky. I mean, is it getting headlines? Yes. Is it advancing the sport? And the answer is no. Yes, McLevin.
Maybe they need like a new young star, like a 20-year-old Tyson to come in, and because all these guys we mentioned, Canelo,
Yeah, but okay.
Lomachenko,
how
they're
are
all
you-
in the
how you-
mid-30s.
How are you getting where are you getting young Mike Tyson from?
I don't know.
He might go to MMA
You're right. That's probably what would happen.
because that's where the money is. And understand what happened and how Mike was created. I mean, Mike was a great story. He was a troubled youth. Customato, legendary boxer, takes him under his wing. They live, upstate New York, and they set up all of these fighters for him to knock them out. He didn't fight anybody who was a big name. And the two big names that he fought were Evander Holyfield and Lewis. And he didn't do well against boxers. He was a one-punch artist, and if it went past the second or third round, then you saw Mike just become normal. But that first round, he was knocking people out. I was there ringside for two of them. When Michael Spinks got in there, and Michael Spinks was a quality light heavyweight, had no business being in the ring with Mike, and then Joe Frazier's son.
Marvis.
Had no business being in there. But
How long? So you weren't there for long then?
I was not. No. Didn't even get a beer. But Lennox Lewis and Evander Holyfield frustrated Mike. And can you create somebody who's going to be knocking people out? Well, Don King was brilliant at doing that. He created this sort of phenomenon in Mike Tyson.